One of the things we have to do before we start actually teaching how to acquire visual skills for hitters is get to the core of what's really going on here. So we're going to look at what to see, how to see, where to see, and when to see. Several years ago, I read a book by the former Army Chief of Staff Gordon Sullivan called Hope is Not a Method. One of the points that he made, one of the principles he emphasized during his career in the Army was that the philosophical must come before the physical. Now that sounds kind of philosophical, but here's what it means. We've got to find out what's really important. What do we really want to do before we start doing something? So what we've got to do here is, what are we really trying to see? Take, for instance, a situation where somebody tells you, or the teenage girl playing softball or whatever, that there's going to be a concert involving the favorite band or favorite singer. What would you ask? What would she ask? Likely she'd say, where? Where are they going to be? When are they going to be there? Only later would your teenage daughter worry about getting the money from you and how she's going to get there. She'd want to know where the band or singer is going to be and when will the concert be. That's the guts of vision as far as hitters are concerned. Now we can talk about arm slots, we can talk about spin, rotation, pitcher mechanics, the situation. All of those things go into making up the where and the when. But the key, the core is, where is the ball going to be? When will it get there? Once I've got that information, then my job as a hitter is to take the bat forcefully to that location at the proper time. That's the what of the visual part of hitting. Once we've established the what to see, which is the where and when, the speed, the location of the ball, this type of thing, we've got to teach how to see that. Far too often as coaches, we tell players what to do. Throw strikes, for instance, to pitchers. Hit the ball hard. We've got to show and teach players how to do that. And then we've got to create the drills so that their body, their eyes in this situation, can do what their brain has heard, seen, and learned about. We've got to develop the drills so that this can occur. But there are some principles we need to look at first. One of the principles of how to see the ball better, how to get the information the way that we should, is to make sure both eyes see the ball. Sounds simple, sounds a little silly, but often players block their vision so that only one eye is really seeing the ball well. If the back eye, the eye nearest the catcher, is the dominant eye, that becomes even more of an obstacle to collecting the good information. One way to do this is to have the hitter cover their front eye and turn toward the catcher. Then they slowly, from their batting stance, turn toward the pitcher who is showing them the release point. They're in a position where the release point is there. The hitter then turns as far as she needs to, but not too far, so that the back eye can clearly see the ball. At that point, they know that both eyes are properly collecting the information. In addition to that, most hitters, not all, find it convenient and more effective to have their eyes level when they're collecting this information. You'll see hitters whose eyes are tilted when they're in the batter's box trying to collect information about a pitch moving 40, 50, 60, maybe up to 70 miles an hour, depending on the skill level that they're playing at, and they've got their eyes tilted. Yet throughout life, as they walk around, as they drive a car, as they sit at a desk, their eyes are level. They spend their life collecting visual information with level eyes, get in a batter's box and perform a very difficult task where they've got less than half a second, a lot of times about a fourth of a second, maybe a fifth of a second, to collect the visual information, and they tilt their eyes. Doesn't make sense. You use your life spending time collecting information visually with your eyes level, get in a batter's box with a challenging task, and tilt your eyes. So make sure the eyes are level for most hitters. I did a clinic one time in Chicago, and Deanna Harris, the leading hitter for the USA national team, the Olympic team in the '96 Olympics, had the highest batting average, was the person doing the demo. This was a couple of years before the Olympics. She was doing the demo stuff on the stage, and I talked about level eyes, and we looked, and Deanna Harris, who was one of the top hitters in the country, had her eyes tilted. Would I have ever given Deanna Harris advice to change her eye position? No. She was leading the women's major national tournaments and hitting at that point, and a member of the USA national team. She was hitting quite well with eyes that was tilted. Deanna Harris, wanting to be the very best that she could, however, decided she did want to change and told me years later that it helped her see the high inside pitch much better and it made her a better hitter. Again, I would not advise you to change a hitter with eyes that are slightly tilted if she's succeeding already at the elite level. Maybe at the youth level, maybe at the younger level, yes. Deanna Harris, I would advise not to have changed her eyes. But she chose to change her eye position and said that level eyes even helped her at that stage of her career. Finally, make sure that you limit tension. We found this out at the Kansas City Royals Baseball Academy, that if a batter squeezes the bat too tightly, it creates tensions in the muscle around the eyes. Be careful about tension at the plate. You want a little bit, otherwise you'll be a sleeper in the graveyard if there's no tension. But you don't want extreme tension by squeezing bats too much or awkward hitting positions that create tension in the body. Be relaxed as a hitter, and you'll also see better. We've discussed now the what to see and the how to see. We've got to know where to see. Where do we look? Where do we look? And in a moment we'll talk about when do we look there, because that's also important. Where do we look? We want to see the point of release, actually the area of release. If you talk to hitters, they'll tell you it's the hip. How do we know that? We need to study the pitchers. Where is their point of release? Do they release one pitch from the hip level, one from the thigh level, one in a little bit of a different position? When we're sitting in the dugout, when we're in the on-deck circle, when a pitcher's warming up between innings, warming up before the game, we need to study that point of release. Now, there is some debate among the visual skill gurus. Do we want to see the ball actually released, or do we want our eyes slightly in front of that? That's getting pretty elite, pretty technical. At least see the ball from about the point of release. The longer we've waited to spot the ball, to start collecting that information, we've got to be very careful, because then we've got less time to see it and carry out all of the actions of hitting. So we'd like to see the ball when it leaves the hand, or if we get highly technical, highly elite in some people's opinion, maybe be slightly out in front of the ball with our eyes so that we actually do see it released. That's getting pretty technical, but zero in at least on seeing the ball released. Study the pitchers. They vary. They vary on pitches. They vary from pitcher to pitcher. Study the releases so that we know where to look, so that we see the information as soon as we can. Okay, big part of hitting now with the visual skills, the collection of the information, is when do I collect this information? We talked about the point of release, but be careful. Be careful not to focus on that area too soon. Scientists tell us that we can highly concentrate 1 to 2 seconds, some say 2 to 3 seconds, depends on who you listen to. Hitters who are really gung-ho or perfectionists who want to see the ball well will sometimes look at the point of release too soon. They'll stare. They'll stare to find the ball, and that's a negative situation for the hitter. We only want to look there 1 to 2 seconds before the ball reaches the point of release. Another thing we want to avoid is watching the arm go around. Some hitters will watch the ball come out of the pitcher's glove, watch the arm circle, and then try to pick up the ball coming out of the release point. They do that because they've been told to keep their eye on the ball, to watch the ball. So it's natural they may want to do that. The problem is our eyes cannot keep up with the speed of the pitcher's hand going around. We're late seeing the ball released, and we're behind in our task of collecting the information, making decisions about it, and carrying out the hitting action. So 1, avoid staring. Do not look at the point of release too soon. 2, avoid watching the ball in the arm circle with the pitcher. We don't get a lot of time to do this. You got to realize a pitcher throwing a ball about 60 miles an hour, rounding off some numbers here again, it takes about 0.4 of a second to get to the plate. You've only got half that time or less maybe to collect the information, analyze it, and decide what to do about it. So you've got about 1/4 or 1/5 of a second. Realize if we're talking about 1/4 of a second, in a decimal term, that's 0.25. 0.25. If I say that in a normal speed or rhythm, 0.25, that's about how long 0.25 of a second takes. You don't have long to see this pitch. So you've got to be looking at the right place, but you've also got to be looking at the right time. You don't have a lot of time. You've got to be in the right place, but be careful by emphasizing this, that the hitter who is really trying to do what she's supposed to do doesn't stare and doesn't look there too soon. Now, if you don't look there too soon, the area of release, the point of release, where do you look? In baseball, they've always taught hitters to look at the cap, because the point of release is slightly to the right or left of the cap. And they taught them to focus on the cap what we call soft focus or soft centering, kind of looking but not really seeing. You just look softly at it. And about the time the ball is going to arrive in the pitcher's release point, they would teach the hitter to shift their eyes right or left to find the point of release. A soft focus to a fine focus, a wide screen to a zoom in, whatever you want to call that. Soft centering to fine centering. But guess what? Not all hitters are as good looking left to right as they are right to left. Some people, when they walk in a room, look to the right and scan the room toward the left. Others look at the left and scan to the right. Some people look down and go upward when they look at things. If they see somebody walking on the street, they start from the shoes and look up. Others look from the face and look down. Let's personalize this eye sequencing, if you want to call it. Let the hitter look somewhere and then shift to the point of release. It's got to be in the area. It's the soft focus anyway. So they could look at the pitcher's shoes in softball and then move upward to the area of release. They could look at the pitcher's hip and move out to the side. They could look at the face and move down to the point of release. It really is not too important, but they need soft focus to fine focus, soft centering to fine centering at a sequence that works good for them. Here's the key. We're not cloning people. We're not cloning them. We're going to personalize this eye sequencing. The key is, can I get the where-when information in time to forcefully carry the bat to the ball and be an effective hitter? Get the where and the when. That's the what. Work on the how. Work on the where to look. But be very important about when do I look there so that I get the what and the where. It can all be done. Doesn't take long. It's a relaxed, soft to fine type of focus, and it will make your hitter collect more accurately, more completely, and more quickly the information she needs to be the good hitter.